talk. Okay, so I want you to listen just a short piece. The one thing I hope you will do, at least some of you will do after this meeting this morning, that you will go into an old record shop or in a CD store. You will find that classical music are in those big baskets where you have a $5 CDs. Okay, I'm sure that somewhere around you will find an entire collection of the whole Mahler production for $9 or $10 or $15 maximum. Buy it, okay? And then start listening. And I think you will understand much better what I'm telling you. But let's start from where he began. This is I'll let you hear just a couple of minutes of his first symphony. And he was 24, and he thought that he had it all. Said, I'm gonna be filthy rich, because it's so magnificent, so fantastic that everybody is gonna applaud. Everybody is gonna buy my score, and I can retire immediately and live out of the first symphony. Actually, it was a total disaster, and he had to work a lot to get the reputation. But in his first symphony, he opens it with 7 octaves of A. You know the A, the note A, B, C, D? Okay. So you will hear clearly that he does this. Om. Because he wants the people to tune to the sound of the universe, which is something the bourgeois, the middle class of his time, was totally shocked. Couldn't expect anything more different than this. So, you see, and then you hear a fanfare, and then a melody, and then a cuckoo, and then a branch that breaks, because he wanted to describe with his music the world that was around him. And actually, when he was a kid, his father was going home, and he said to poor Gustav, wait a sec, I have something that I forgot. I have to go back in town. Stay here. The poor Mahler sat on the woods, you know? And can you imagine a 6 years old, 7 years old kid in the woods alone? Okay? Not daring to move because daddy was a kind of hard. So he sat there for 3 hours. Then the father forgot, and then he said, I have a kid somewhere. And, but the little Gustav was not scared, was so absorbed into the music that you will hear it, that this absorption of nature is always in his music. Military camp, so he heard trumpets far away, and he put it into the symphony. And then you'll hear a cuckoo and a rabbit. Wagnerian love themes are always something that massage your heart. It really takes your heart and hug you know, because there is always a sense of tenderness and peace in his description of love. But I hope you got the feeling. This music actually he composed when he was in love with a fantastic blonde, and you know he lost his brain for this girl, and he described love like a young man jumping through the fields, you know, happy, I'm in love, you know, and he put this into his music. What happened with Mahler's music though is that always there is death. So you have an opening in general positive, then it takes you down to the pain, and then it takes you off, high, positive. So it's a kind of washing your soul from all the worries, but not saying nothing happened. You have to face your worries. You have to face your pain. And so in the symphony, he did something absolutely crazy. Nobody ever did before. He takes a piece of music that was very known, and probably you still know. Do you know Frère Jacques? Da 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 da. Okay. He put this into a symphony. But this is a positive sound. It's in major tune. He does it in minor tune. So he does two things like Jimi Hendrix. Okay? He takes another piece of music, he transforms, he distorts it, and he puts it into the symphony. This is one of the main reasons why the first symphony was a total fiasco, because the audience thought he was offending them. You know, saying, we are here into a theater and you're playing Frère Jacques. I mean, what do you think we're here? What do you think we paid for? We wanted music. This is an insult. Not only, he will put Jewish music. He will put gypsy music into the same movement. And because he envisioned not simply a funeral, but a Western funeral, you know, in Vienna at the time, the funeral, like in New Orleans, had the band in front, okay? And imagine a gypsy funeral and a Austrian funeral and a Jewish funeral mixing together. So you see three different kinds of music. He thought it was brilliant, and I think it was brilliant, but for his time was something nobody ever heard. And look at this man. He's a double bass player. Nobody had a solo of double bass. Why a double bass? Not even in rock today is usual to have a bass solo at the beginning of a song. He wanted this kind of tragicomic sound. Do you recognize Frère Jacques? out of tune, the popular music, he included into the symphony. And this is called elasticity. You know, the rhythm is not, let's say, the German type of rhythm. It's all floating. Now the funeral is crossing. The gypsies are arriving. Okay, you got a clue of what he had in mind. He had the idea that a symphony would be a description of life. Okay? And interesting is that this is very important for innovation. Being a conductor, he knew that every single element of the orchestra was important. Usually when you see 50 violins in an orchestra, you think, okay, it can hide, you know. Even if I don't play, nobody will pay attention. But in all Mahler's work, there are moments in which you can hear just one or two instruments. It's kind of treating the whole orchestra as an ensemble of individuals. And this is very important in innovation, because in innovation you require every single member of the team, every single employee as a part of success. You have to know, as he knew, exactly what the sound of a violin, of a cello, of a trombone is, because he wanted the sound. And actually, he is the first one, and I think the only one, who did a symphony for 1,000 musicians. I will be at the performance as soon as I'll go back to Italy, because it's very rare to attend this. Can you imagine how much it cost to have 1,000 musicians? Actually, they do it with 500. The one I'm going to listen to in Milan will be with 500 musicians. Why 500 musicians? Because he wanted the power of sound. He didn't have the big amps of today, so he needed musicians and singers, you know. And by the way, the 8th Symphony is his hymn to love. And when it ends with his cry for love, he wants all the possible power to describe his vision of love. I told you, for him, love and death are always connected. Okay, he lost his brother that he was really, really caring of. And then he also lost one of his 2 daughters. And this really affected him, you know. And we have to keep this in mind when we listen to his music. Because he's talking about 2 of the things that we always are worried about. Will my boy love me? Will my girl love me? What if my mother's die? What if I die? What happened? You know, and we are not all comfortable with these concepts. And we have to, sometimes we ask poets and musicians to help us understand these kind of feelings. But it seems it's interesting too that he said, we do not compose, we are composed. What does it mean? He says that the mission of an artist is bigger than him. He is kind of a medium between something bigger that he feels like a mission to communicate. And he always has been faithful to this vision, listening to the demon as a composer. He has a duty. Even he has to write about something tragic. One of his composition is called the Song of the Deaf Children. And his wife said, "Are you insane, Gustav? How can you write a music talking about dead children?" He said, "I don't know, I have to. I feel I have to." Probably his mission was to help people who was losing children to kind of face and bear such a tremendous weight. But exactly, his vision was, we do not compose, we are composed. There is something bigger that tells us, you know? Okay. I want want you to listen 3 minutes, yes, to something absolutely unusual for the time. He was a Jewish, but he thought that for an artist it's not conceivable that there is not something after life. There must be something after. If you're an artist, you have to think that there must be something worth after. Doesn't really mean that it must be the Catholic God or whatever, but something transcendent there must be. Otherwise, you as an artist, you have no meaning. If everything is materialistic and in this world, there is no sense. So he composed the second symphony, and it's called the Resurrection. Resurrection is a concept that doesn't exist in the Jewish religion. It's Catholic. And he kind of converted to Catholicism, mainly because of this. And the final movement of his second symphony is all dedicated to the concept of resurrection. We let it go. There is a singing part, and the text says, "Believe, my heart, believe. There is a reason why you have suffered so much on earth. Because all the sufferance you have here has a general meaning in the eternal life." Obviously, this was the response he gave to himself, facing so many troubles. But I tell you personal, because I told you that every symphony starts with a, let's say, an introduction, then there is a moment of big sufferance, and then there is a kind of purification and an ecstasy at the end. When I listen to the second symphony at the end, I mean, your heart is so full of peace and relaxation and saying, okay, even though I doubted that what I'm doing was worth, now I know that it was worth, you know? Because his music is always full of hope. Now the choir will enter. They pronounce the German word auferstehen, that means raised from the ground up. Because of timing, I try to skip at the end because I want you to watch. May I take you? Very difficult eye and finger coordination. I want you to look at Lenny Bernstein. Look, he's conducting. He sings. Joys in his eyes, sharing this moment with all the musicians. Look, the horns are instructed to play as loud as they can. you see how everything in his music is really keen to transfer to you the sense of what he's talking about. And performing this kind of music requires that you're fully dedicated to this music. This is why the musicians who play Mahler, the conductors that play Mahler, but even the ones who started listening to Mahler's music, feel and really taste this kind of atmospheres. So I told you that the other big thing for him was love. He had a love story with the first blonde, but then he married Alma Schindler, she was much younger than him, and he was not a good husband after all. He was so into his art that he couldn't really pay enough time and attention to his wife.